A new season, but not necessarily a brand new meta from top to bottom. We did see a bunch of weapon changes that were minor here and there, and we do have a few standouts because of that. Unfortunately, one of the biggest changes they did when this new season dropped, they added this new brace underbarrel, which was great for like 3 LMGs. This particular one with the cast off, the tac eradicator, I think allowed for it. They nerfed it. Essentially now it doesn't do that, or else we would have included that. Unfortunately, you can no longer tac stand. So sadly, even though these didn't kill the fastest, the biggest gimmick of them, you were able to move insanely fast. You can still move fast for an LMG, but that's kind of why I kept them off of this list. And like we did in the long range meta, we went ahead and kind of looked at Warzone stats, true game data, as well as COD community. And we kind of looked at the close range meta to kind of figure out where they kind of have some alignment with their different loadout preferences. And you can see number one they have is the static. Then the Superi, a little bit of a mixed bag there. I think true game data lowers that one a little bit, but that still puts it at third. FJX Horus comes in at fourth. Then we have like 3 of them at fifth, and then a bunch of weapons that you're reaching at this point. There's not a ton in this area where they're going to be in everyone's list because it's just not that many great options outside of that. You can love any of those. I'm sure some of you do and will defend some of those to the death. But the reality is the vast majority when it comes to the meta are going to be using the top weapons, which is primarily the static, and then a few options here depending on your playstyle. So now that we have that part done, I also want to let you know we updated the spreadsheet for close and long range meta. Let me know if anything seems a little bit off. I can go in there and spot check to see if something is in fact off and correct that, so we have as accurate information as possible. But what I've gone is I removed the notes section from in between. It was a little bit harder to keep up with it that way. And then we can focus on the specific guns that I think are meta currently. And I moved them over to this section. I'll probably do it for these other ones, but I thought it was important to kind of include this section so we can include that information. Then it'll be a little bit more accurate. You can see that the Reclaimer is still broken. We don't need a TTK on that. The Jack MCW, this is with the conversion kit, has a 600 TTK. But if you get 3 leg shots, you're going to get a slower TTK, and 3 headshots can actually make it faster. The Lachmann Shroud with the conversion kit doesn't have a really good TTK on here, but if you can aim for only chest and above, you'll get a 600 TTK. If you get even 2 legs or 3 stomach or a combination of the mix there, it'll slow down the TTK and you'll end up with the 675. So it could be very inconsistent, and that could be based off user, but it gives you great option there. Striker, 651 TTK. You can see with or without headshots there, unless you get 4 headshots or 5 leg. So it's kind of a very consistent TTK. The WSP9 has a pretty fast TTK, but there is an open bolt delay, which you got to kind of factor in for close range engagements, not so much long. 3 headshots will make this slightly faster. 3 leg shots will make this slower. 3 leg shots is pretty possible. That's sometimes why the WSP can feel weak at times, or it takes an extra shot to kill, because the fire rate's slow. So that jumps it up to like 700 TTK. The Jack BP50, this is the BP50 with the conversion kit, 609 TTK, pretty reliably. If you end up getting 7 headshots, it could be slightly faster. And if you get 5 leg shots, it could be slightly slower. So again, this one's gonna be pretty reliable. FJX Horus, not the greatest range or bullet velocity. Fast TTK, 4 headshots for a faster TTK. Limbs, it doesn't matter since the body profile is pretty much the same. And then the Superi, still a good movement, but you need 2 headshots to get a faster TTK. 1 isn't enough. 4 to 5 leg to actually make it slower, the stomach in the mix. And then the static, even though it is one of the slower TTKs and slower than the average we see here, it benefits the most from headshots because it only takes 1 headshot to get the faster TTK, and it would take 7 leg shots to get the slower TTK. So like I mentioned, we have the MCW and the Lachmann Shroud. These are more a little bit on the edge, the fringe classes. I think there's some good things about them, some bad things about them, and they're really not a jack of all trades, but they could be fun to mix it up. So we'll go ahead and start with that Lachmann Shroud, and you kind of see the build there. This one's built more to kind of have a decent ADS speed, brings it down to 173. I know you can't see it there. And then built with a better recoil control with the paracord. I know a lot of people like the DR6 hand stop, which we'll talk about a couple times, as well as the XRK Edge. They have different use cases depending on what you're looking for. Since the ADS speed is already pretty good, it's under 200, not necessarily as important to have even faster ADS speed, especially when you can get better recoil control for those medium ranges. Bullet velocity on this thing sucks though. That's one of the ways they really destroyed it. Hopefully at some point, maybe they'll adjust it because it's going to make hitting targets at range, you're going to see the smoke. The bullets just don't land where you're trying to aim. Within this 25 meters is pretty good. Definitely not a sniper support. You're going to use this close range and close range only. Then we get the MCW close range, another gun. Again, a bullet velocity problem. It either has that or an ADS problem where it's super slow. Right now, it's only about 220 millisecond ADS, which is slow for a close range, but it could generally be way slower, like almost 300 if you actually build it out for like a sniper support, which is a totally different build. This one is specifically geared towards using it up close, having good mobility, having good recoil control, while still having okay, bad bullet velocity, while having a decent enough aim down sight to be able to hit your targets as they are in those specific ranges. Then we get into some guns that we've already talked about quite a bit. We got the Striker. Again, this is where the XRK becomes kind of one of those things. 220 millisecond right there with the MCW. It has almost 700 bullet velocity. You could make the ADS 6 milliseconds faster, which is nothing. Not worth necessarily taking the hit, especially since there's not much of a difference there. You can pick whichever one you want, or you could go the paracord. You're going to lose a little bit of crouch movement speed, but it doesn't matter, but it's going to bring your ADS to 232, which is about 10 milliseconds slower. But you get better recoil. So you could go with that one, but it will feel a little bit slower. So I've gone with this build. It has decent enough iron sight. You can be able to challenge a little bit more at the medium range. The bullet velocity is actually insane, but you can't really change much. Maybe you want to get rid of the high grain. You could do that and then put it on an optic, and then you'd still have pretty ridiculous bullet velocity of about 570 for an SMG. That's kind of insane. You could put on a barrel that'll speed you up quite a bit. This one is insanely good, and then you're going to have a little bit worse range. So you could go that way as well. So that's what's nice. You do get a few different options to kind of build out the gun if you want. This one will have better movement and a little bit worse bullet velocity, but you have a lot to work with. So you can kind of skip around and choose which one makes the most sense for you. And this is kind of a base build. WSP9. Again, this one's a little bit on the slower end for the type of gun it is. It falls more in the sniper support. I wouldn't really recommend this for point blank range as much. You just have to be kind of aware what the strengths and weaknesses of the gun are, and it definitely excels at the just outside of the close range, like the 15-ish meters, where some of these guns have drop-offs. It's going to be insanely good in those ranges. Up close, because of that open bolt delay, there's like that little bit of a delay when you pull the trigger, which doesn't like make the bullets come out instantaneously. But overall, pretty solid build we've had for a while. It just has a slow fire rate, which definitely penalizes you. PP50, which I think is kind of one of those guns that is just so good. Bullet velocity, 650. Aim down sight speed, 170. Pretty good. And then recoil, not too bad. So you kind of have a really good gun overall. Again, I think the reason why people tend to avoid this gun is this reload. I brought this up many times. If they could speed up that reload, I think you would see this used even over the static. But obviously, it has a reload problem. The strafe speed could be faster for an SMG close range. Obviously, that's been nerfed a couple times, but at least it would be pretty good if you didn't get caught reloading. So there's a few things wrong with it that could be better, but it's pretty solid all the way around and could be viable as a pretty good sniper support. FJX Horus. Biggest problem with this gun is the range. 11 meters isn't particularly good. The iron sights kind of suck, so you got to wear an optic on the gun. Pretty decent. I mean, the fast fire rate's pretty forgiving, especially when you compare something like the Uzi or the WSP9 that has a lot slower fire rate. This thing's going to be like you're tickling them, especially once you get outside of that 11 meters. It's going to feel like you're tickling the target. So you got to be aware of that. Just kind of choose your fights. You can barrel stuff and get closer, but it's definitely not nearly going to be as strong as the top two guns on this list, which have been the same ones for a while here. Static and Superi. Obviously, you could build this out multiple different ways. Again, like I said, you could choose the underbarrel that makes the most sense for you, but overall, pretty good gun. It's been mostly the same since it came out. As far as the loadouts goes, it hasn't really changed too much on the gun. They've nerfed it a few different ways, but overall, it still continues to be very viable because of the nice mobility, fast reload. 40 round mag doesn't feel as good as a 60 round or a 50 round, but that's kind of the problem it always had since the beginning. And it's pretty solid. Then the static, kind of a jack of all trades. You can go paracord, like I said, or you can go the hand stop, or you can go the XRK Edge. For this one, it's kind of a toss-up between, for me, the XRK Edge and the paracord, because the XRK gives you a little bit better movement, which is nice. You could go the hand stop, but the ADS speed's already good enough, so you're not getting as big a benefit. So I would probably go with the XRK in general. And then you get an extra attachment because you don't have to worry about a mag, so you can go all in on the optic. Even though this gun's iron sights are okay, I wish there were a little bit more like a better profile, but overall, I mean, it gets the job done. This is what everyone's been using for 2 months. So we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.